Great. Welcome everyone to tonight's December 9th Regional Council meeting. Just want to acknowledge that the Northern Rockies Administration Center is located in the heart of the traditional territory of the Dene, Cree, and Dene Sa people of Fort Nelson and Prophet River First Nations. We further recognize the rights provided by our treaty. We also celebrate the contributions and the enduring presence of the Métis people in our region. Please be advised that tonight's meeting is available for the public to attend virtually, is being streamed and recorded. Are there any additions, CAO? Okay, I have an addition, staff recognition. We'll put that under 10.1. Are there any public comments, questions on tonight's agenda? Seeing none, I'll look for an adoption of the agenda, please. Councillor Andrews, seconded by Councillor Souls. All in favor? Motion carries. Adoption of minutes. Is the mayor on at all? No? Okay. Adoption of minutes, the regional council meeting of November 25 and committee of the whole minutes of November 25th. Looking for a motion. Councillor Roper, seconded by Councillor Andrews. All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. Are there any business arising from the minutes? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move to our delegation. We have Colton Kersop here to speak to the interim housing needs report. Hi, Colton. Do you want introductions or do you recognize us all by now?
Good evening, Councillor Growing. I do recognize most of you now, so I can jump into the presentation, and I know you have a long agenda.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, it says I've disabled screen sharing. So.
Okay, just give us a sec.
Yeah. There, I've got it now. Thanks.
Okay.
Okay. Are you able to see the slide?
Sure can.
Okay, great. For some reason, it's not highlighted today. So good evening. Yes, my name is Colton Kersop. I'm the Division Manager of Planning for McElhaney's Surrey office and working with your administration to prepare the interim housing needs report in alignment with local government act requirements. So I'll just begin by describing what a housing needs report and assessment are. The housing needs report is actually a summary of the more detailed housing needs assessment that's attached to the staff report in front of you on this agenda item. Housing needs reports help communities better understand their current and future housing needs. The reports are intended to help identify existing and projected gaps in the long-term housing supply by collecting and analyzing available quantitative and qualitative information about local demographics, household incomes, housing stock, and other factors. And this housing needs report is intended to be useful in developing a housing action or strategy informing your land use planning framework, such as your OCP and your zoning bylaw, which are both of conversation later this evening. So let's get into why do that housing needs report. So the real why is the legislation was updated. So beyond the philosophical reasons why, we're responding to legislation which was passed in November 2023, requiring all local municipalities to update their housing needs reports to give a 5 and a 20-year housing projection, and to complete and publish these reports by January 1st of 2025. So after the interim housing needs report is completed, which it has been, municipalities have until December 31st of next year to ensure that their official community plan and zoning bylaw updates are completed to allow for or pre-zone for the type and number of housing units identified in that housing needs report. So this gives the market and non-market housing developers a wider range of pre-zoned sites to choose from, to ensure any pre-existing planning barriers in a community's official community plan or its zoning bylaw are sort of preemptively removed. So the how, in terms of how we prepared the housing needs report, involved our firm, McElhaney, following the province's new methodology for these reports. And the methodology is provided by UBC's Housing Assessment Resource Tool, which they call very lovably the HART calculator. So we used the HART calculator to automatically pull in relevant data for each component of the housing needs report methodology. And it shows users each step to calculate the total number of housing units needed over 5 and 20 years. Most of the data that we were required to collect is provided through the BC Data Catalog and Statistics Canada, and this information was input to the HART calculator. The HART calculator is powered by custom census data from Statistics Canada and those housing researchers at UBC. So the housing needs report, yeah.
Sorry, do you want us to hold our questions until the end, or do you want us to ask as we go along? What's your preference?
Preference would be at the end. I'm halfway through, so it shouldn't be too much longer.
Sounds good, thanks.
So the housing needs report method consists of 6 components, which are added together to provide a total number of housing units needed in a municipality. The 6 components are extreme core housing need, persons experiencing homelessness, suppressed housing formation, anticipated housing growth, and rental vacancy rate adjustment, and last of all, a demand buffer. So on this next subsequent slides, I'll just give you the highlights of each of those component findings and then your grand total. So in extreme core housing need, to address extreme core housing need, 15 units are needed to meet the 20-year build target, and 4 units are needed to meet the 5-year build target. Households living in extreme core housing need are those households that either have inadequate or unsuitable housing, or they're paying more than 50% of their income for those shelter costs. As of 2021, there were approximately 412 households in NRRM identified as living in core housing need. And then the next component is persons experiencing homelessness. The results of the calculation are that 22 housing units are needed over the next 20 years, with 11 units needed over the next 5 years. For suppressed housing formation, the component found 48 units are needed over the next 20 years, with 12 units needed over the next 5 years. What this number represents is households that could have formed if housing was more readily available, such as adult children not moving out from home to form their own households, or choosing to have roommates where they otherwise wouldn't have to. The anticipated household growth component has some different findings. These are negative numbers. Due to the current availability of housing stock overall and a projected decline in population, the numbers for housing units to be developed is negative in this category. And the numbers are negative 115 units over the next 20 years and negative 69 units in the next 5 years. Although the general oversupply of housing is noted, there are some specific gaps in the housing market, such as units for seniors and persons experiencing homelessness. The rental vacancy rate component has identified 2 units needed for the 5-year calculation and 9 units for the 20-year calculation. Vacancy rates are seen to be healthy when they're floating around 3%, meaning that there's available units for people looking to move to or within a community. And this calculation uses the provincial vacancy rate of 1.4% with the goal of providing enough units to bring this percentage up to 3% vacancy rate. So in summary, the demand buffer, I have to cover that as well. So this typically applies in communities where there's high in-migration or more explosive growth, and the demand buffer shows that no additional units are needed in NRRM over the next 20 or 5 years. So the summary of findings is that there is negative 21 units of housing needed in the 5-year total and negative 41 units needed in the 20-year total. However, specific gaps such as smaller units for the growing number of seniors remain to be addressed. So the findings mean that in the Northern Rockies Regional Municipality, despite that projected decline and oversupply of housing, the aging population does need some attention. So by 2024, the population of residents aged 80 and over is projected to increase by 218%. So from 54 units today, 54 people today to 172 people over the 20-year projection. So this highlights the need for accessible and senior-friendly housing, including supportive living arrangements. Meanwhile, affordability remains critical, with 13% of households spending more than 30% of their income on shelter. Renters in particular face a higher burden compared to homeowners. And then there's also the suitability of homes to address, with the legacy of housing generally being larger, family-oriented housing, which is a bit of a mismatch compared to the population, which is currently skewing younger. So folks looking for 1 and 2 bedroom homes, and older seniors looking again for 1 and 2 bedroom homes. It's that missing sort of family cohort that's not present in the community as much as they were historically. So as the municipality moves forward with the updated OCP and the small scale multi-unit housing changes to the zoning bylaw, you will be prepared to be able to permit the construction of those types of homes. And the OCP, which we're working on, will also be aligned to enable secondary suites and smaller scale multi-unit housing types. In terms of next steps, as a part of our analysis of the land supply and the rates of development in NRM, we have found that the OCP for the Fort Nelson area has significant capacity in the current land use designations. And so there is a 413 hectare urban residential area currently designated, and we're proposing to keep that area designated in the draft OCP. And that gives you a 400+ year supply of land based on current trends. And similarly, for the supply of rural residential lands, there's 485 hectares of rural residential land already designated. And that turns out to be a 25-year supply of land based on current development trends. So therefore, based on our projections, your OCP is in good shape in terms of how much land is designated for OCP residential uses. And then as the cover report, staff report indicated, to comply with the LGA, receiving this report and having it published online meets those legislated requirements. And I'm happy to take your questions at this time.
Great. Thanks, Colton. Council, does anybody around the table have any questions? Councillor Andrews?
Yeah, I just had one. When taking in, sorry, let me rephrase that. Is the age of the houses taken into account? I didn't notice it in the report there, but I imagine that would skew things too, the age of the house and what kind of upkeep they need.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a bit of a factor in 2 areas. One area where the age of the housing, and actually more so, I guess, maybe not so much the age is a factor, but the condition of the housing. If the housing is in poor state of repair, that is one of the factors that could mean a household is experiencing core housing need. So if there's a very large family in a small home and they're sort of overcrowded, or the conditions aren't well maintained, that is what Statistics Canada uses to deem that a household has moved into core housing need, or they're spending too much money on their housing, 50% of their income or higher. But the age is also a bit of a factor, because a lot of your housing stock was built at a time when families were larger, and across the province, families are getting smaller. And so that's also a bit of a factor in the calculations.
Mayor, do you have any questions for Colton?
I do. Thank you very much. Good evening, Colton. Sorry I missed the introduction at the start of the meeting. There's several places in the report where it talks about inadequate information was available to draw a conclusion, and you use provincial averages. And I can't just recall them all. But does that really have any significant bearing on the outcome of the report? Like, is it fairly accurate, even though you didn't have all the information that you were, because we're pretty significantly different than, you know, the rest of the province with respect to housing availability, that sort of thing.
Just
Yeah,
to add,
absolutely.
Mayor, it was the rental vacancy rate that they were using a provincial average, not, they
Yeah.
didn't have any information on the local vacancy
Yeah.
rates. I had that exact same question. Thanks.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's safe to say that the model is highly theoretical. It's intended to help people really see the big picture, and we're working with a lot of smaller, more remote communities, and these numbers are coming out in a sort of a similar fashion, in that there's some areas where, you know, you've got a big number that's negative, but there's only a couple of areas that are highlighted as, I think, being more relevant to your local population, which is the seniors projection.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
And then using some of the provincial data to fill gaps is something we've done with a number of other smaller communities. But it is really that rental vacancy rate. And also we weren't able to find a distinction between how many were renters and versus owners in the core housing need calculation.
Right. Right. Okay. Thanks for that. And you know, and my gut in reading it is that it reflects fairly accurately what I see in the community, and I hope others feel the same way. You know, particularly around the seniors. I think you guys got that right on. So your experience around the province, because this is not a new thing around the province, other communities have been doing it. Is the province actively enforcing you know, the requirements to come up to speed with the recommendations or the outcomes of these reports?
I could offer, I guess, speculation. I've been following some of the other aspects of the legislation, such as the small scale multi-unit housing, and certain municipalities have been noted to have not been working on it, such as the District of West Vancouver. And there's been statements about how the province will take over their planning if they don't get on it. So
Yeah.
they're monitoring things in certain areas. In the TOD legislation, which is for, you know, the city of Burnaby, they just adopted it, I think, last week. And again, they had been holding back. So they're watching, but I don't know how they're doing that or how quickly they might
Right.
jump on
So
this
it's safe.
housing report piece.
Yeah, it's safe to say then that, you know, they're watching, but they're not actively enforcing, and they're likely to go to those bigger places that have much higher significant housing need than they are to come to small communities, I guess.
Yeah, I was also looking at Kelowna, and you know, their staff did an assessment, and they found out that they didn't have enough land designated. So now they're in a very kind of big crunch to try and figure out where they're going to put all this housing. So they're looking at a really big conversation around what new residential designations are they putting across the community.
Good. Thank you very much. I think it gives us fuel to, you know, to start doing some lobbying to see some type of additional senior housing over the next 20 years for sure. So thank you very much for your report.
You're welcome.
Okay, if nobody else has any questions. Oh, Councillor Souls?
I just noted as well too that the potential for in anticipated housing shrinkage, I mean growth, the negative numbers there don't jive with the rental rates, vacancy rates. So
Exactly.
anyway, that just seemed kind of odd. But on a general comment is that when I read this, it's a really pessimistic viewpoint that we have, and based on there's good reason to see we've been in a constant decline for a very long time. A housing report is to be a factual thing so that it's not really based on what we want to see. So we'll do our best to try to make this so that we're building houses in the near future. So, yeah.
So I had a few comments. The mayor touched on the same two that I had, but if we go back to the results, it says the province requires a specific methodology to determine a final number of housing units that must be facilitated. So I'm just looking for a definition. I know what facilitated means, but in terms of, always hesitate when it's must be. So what must we facilitate? Is that we must have the right amount of land? Like, what are our obligations?
Yes, Councillor Goodwin. I can tell you that what must be facilitated is you must have enough land designated with a residential use to accommodate the projected growth. So our analysis outside of just what the calculator put out in terms of those numbers is you have enough residential land designated. So that's a good thing. And then you have zoning bylaw amendments coming forward that will help reduce barriers to create some of the housing types that are attractive, which is either seniors housing or small scale secondary suites. So you have basically gone through this process, found out that where you're headed with your local plans is going to meet the needs of your projected housing needs.
Okay, thanks. My next comment was around the results, suppressed housing formation. So it says that taking into account what's going on today, 12 units need to be accommodated over the next 5 years and 48 units must be accommodated over the next 20 years. With our apartment vacancy rate as what it is, I am struggling to understand how we must come up with 12 more units in the next 5 years and 48 in the next 20 years. Any insight into how the calculator could have come up with that calculation?
Exactly. The calculator, as I mentioned, I think it's definitely geared for, I think, larger communities that are in a high growth situation. So overall, your numbers are negative because you definitely have enough units. The thinking, I guess, in that category is that it would be, I guess, ideal if there were more 1 and 2 bedroom accommodations available, but you already have more than enough available and they're even larger. So it's a tool that I don't think is a perfect fit for many communities. And I think that these numbers are kind of showing us.
Yes. Okay. Well, that was my point then. I really think that like we are required to do this. We are required to post this online, but I think if council agrees, we can have a discussion on putting on some sort of a disclaimer as to how these numbers are not meeting what our reality actually is. Like it's a tool that does not work for our community. And I mean, you can see it. The proof is right here in this report. That was my comments. Any other questions or comments? I think we lost the mayor. Is Alicia, is he around? Oh, there he is. Okay. Anything else, Mayor?
No, we can have that discussion, and I'd like to debate you a little bit about that point that you made, but it's something we can talk about later. We don't need to look at
Okay.
the time. Yeah.
Great. All right. Thanks, Colton.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
Okay, good night. Okay, so that takes us to admin report 69. The interim housing needs report and assessment. Ms. Thompson. I have a million stickies on here, but I'm not going to go into it, so.
Good evening, Deputy Mayor and Council, and Mayor. So yeah, this was simply just an admin report to front the 2 documents that were attachments and to seek a resolution regarding receiving and posting of the interim housing needs report, which
Great.
we're required to do by December 31st. Thank you.
Any questions,
Thank you.
comments? Counselor Robert?
Just given our short deadline, I'd be willing to make the recommendation unless anyone has anything to add. Okay, I will move that the interim housing needs report, Northern Rockies Regional Municipality 2024, and the interim housing needs assessment, Northern Rockies Regional Municipality 2024, are received and posted publicly.
Thank you. Second? By Counselor Dickey. All in favor? Okay, any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, moving on to report number 70. The Environmental Advisory Committee update, green waste diversion.
Hi, that's me again. Hillary unfortunately has a bit of an injury and she's taken some medication for it, so she won't be joining us tonight. But the report before you is just a bit of an update of what the Environmental Advisory Committee has undertaken and accomplished during 2024. The report also focuses on some ideas around how we might want to improve green waste diversion within the community. So there's information about the solid waste management plan and some of the findings when that was first developed, and the amount of green waste going into our landfill in the range of 35 to 45%. Throughout the year, there's been ongoing engagements, education, public campaigns to help increase green waste diversion. So those are all listed in the report. And then the report goes on to talk about some ways that we might be able to increase or make things a little more fair for people who do divert green waste at the landfill. So there's a bit of an inequity between those who pay for curbside pickup, but then also have the added expense of diverting green waste. So that's captured in this report. Just want to note that the cost to provide landfill and curbside collection services are not currently covered within the current fee structure. So if we do look at implementing something like the report suggests around a residential rebate option, that would be further adding to that inability to basically collect what we pay for landfill services. It adds to that disparity between how much it costs to run a landfill versus providing the service. Right. So the recommendation is that staff investigate the development of a residential rebate program for green waste diversion in the NRM on a trial basis in 2025.
Thank you. Council discussion? Counselor Andrews?
They got up to a lot in 2024.
Mhm.
Well done. As far as a rebate program goes, understanding that it's already not covering costs, should we maybe just change that to like a reward program? They have staff investigate something, some sort of incentive program, maybe not a rebate. That might not be the best way. I just think the recommendation might be narrowing it down a little bit.
Thank you. Mayor, do you have any?
Yes,
Feedback?
thank you. So I do. I agree that the committee's done an awful lot of good stuff, and we are seeing, more diversion. And I don't have any problem with us having a look at what a system might look like as part of the budget discussions. I do think, however, that that our wildfire committee is going to have some requests, and I think the public are going to want to see us, with some kind of action, and getting people to participate in wildfire cleanup of their properties and things like that. It's going to cost people some money, and so I think just be aware that we might have some competing interests with respect to some of this stuff, and more than happy to see a report come to budget. But I think we'll be having a discussion, around what additional measures we're going to take budget-wise to assist some of these programs that we've got going forward. I'm not against it. I'm just worried that that we might have a lot of stuff on our plate, and I believe the focus of the community right now is wildfire mitigation. So just throwing that out there.
Thank you. I would just like to add that what we as a committee and personally what I hear consistently from people wanting to divert is that my garbage pickup is a fixed cost. So whether my garbage can goes out once a month, once a week, however often, I pay X amount of dollars, right? So if we're serious about wanting to get people to divert the organic material, we need to incentivize it in some way. I mean, and there's many ways of doing it. I'm not necessarily and I don't think the committee is necessarily married to the idea of a rebate, but what we continue to hear is that, well, like, I'm already paying so much. I can't now afford to pay X, Y, and Z to divert. The business community is in the same way, right? It's like, and they have a lot of organic material that could be diverted. So yeah, I am glad to hear that most people are in favor of looking into this. Yeah, so I would be, if we want to change that word from rebate to incentivize, like, yeah, I'm totally open to that.
I would like to make a motion that staff investigate the development of a residential incentive program for green waste diversion in the NRM on a trial basis in 2025 to be presented for, I guess, budget considerations.
Okay, is there a seconder? Counselor Dickey? Okay, any discussion? Counselor Solf?
Just a definition of green waste, just remind me what all it includes, because of course we have the food waste and so on and lawn clippings. Does it also include things like the brush in your backyard as you go about fire smarting your place? So
Yeah.
what all does it include?
You can take that, currently, you can take that to feed the worms, right? At no charge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And like all your leaves and like, I think that there is going to be some synergy between fire smarting our properties and this organic diversion. And I look forward to seeing the report that lists those synergies. Mayor?
Thank you. I just heard Kyle say a residential program, and I heard you say that businesses need to be involved. So I just wonder if it's a residential incentive or is it just an incentive program for the community?
Now, that's a great catch. So I'm going to maybe entertain a motion to, what's the word? Amend, thank
Amend.
you. Amend, yeah, okay.
So I'll make that motion that we amend the resolution to remove the word residential.
Okay, do I have a second? Counselor Andrews, all in favor? Motion carries. So we'll go back. And is there any other discussion about the motion? Okay, all in favor? Motion
As
carries.
amended.
Thank you. Okay, thanks. Thanks, Ms. Thompson. Okay, taking us to report number 71. Ms. Vandersteen, good evening.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, Deputy Mayor. This report comes to you after the really great discussion that was had at the Committee of the Whole on November 25th. So first, I'd like to thank everybody who participated in that. It was really great to have such a wholesome conversation. And then there is an attached draft terms of reference for you for the Tourism Committee. Name in flux, I guess, until this decision. And then based off of the conversation at the November meeting, we're proposing that council consider approving in principle tonight, allowing us to use this document as we go into a recruitment period so that people can kind of have a pretty good sense of what they're signing up for or putting their name out for. And then once we elect, the greater we of regional council elects the committee members, the committee can have an opportunity to review those terms of reference, and if they do have any major concerns as a new entity, that those be brought back to council for consideration.
Seems reasonable. Okay, discussion? Mayor,
I'm good.
No.
I think it's good. I'm ready to move
Okay.
forward.
Counselor Andrews?
I just remembered a conversation about having difficulties recruiting members, and I thought that maybe on item 6 here, the committee composition shall include a minimum of 9. Would that make it a little restrictive perhaps when we're having hard times? Like
Oh,
ideally we want 9, but the way I read this is you can't have a committee unless you have
Without.
9.
yeah,
So
that's a good
maybe
point,
just
yeah.
a little wording fix there so that if we only have 7, we can still run.
Yep.
Okay. So we can make that change?
Yeah, so under the options, the second option is to approve in principle with amendments of, so I would just insert that amendment there.
Okay.
And we would make that change before we move it outwards.
Great catch. Okay, any other comments? Okay. Looking for a motion? Okay, good job.
I'd like to make a motion that the Tourism Advisory Committee terms of reference be approved in principle with the amendments of having a minimum of 9 members, have that word changed in there. And that staff begin a member recruitment process.
Okay, second by Counselor Roper. All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Admin report 72. Mr. O'Shaughnessy, welcome.
Good evening, Deputy Mayor, Council. I'm here this evening, as you all recall, joined the Parker Lake wildfire evac this summer. Clearing of municipal land was undertaken without the approval of the in the Miniker Crescent area. On July 8th, Council was provided an update on this, at which time approval was given to undertake survey work to address slope changes and general cleanup. To date, the NRM has completed site grading and drainage mitigation, as well as addressing the removal of dangerous trees to a total cost of $12,500. On request, Urban Systems has provided a quote to develop a plan to provide the basis for converting the Guard into a multi-use area, incorporating a pedestrian trail and an off-road vehicle trail. And the proposal includes development of a design drawing package, Class D estimates, and grant application. The cost for this proposal is $19,000. Council should also note that that proposal would not include construction drawings, tender support, contract administration, or construction oversight. These items would come at an additional cost. An alternative approach could involve taking no further action beyond monitoring drainage and allowing natural growth to overtake the area. So in summary of the report, staff is just seeking input from regional council on one of the following options or all of the following options, whether to invest in the proposed multi-use design, to limit further action to monitoring and maintaining drainage while nature reclaims the area, or explore other potential remediation strategies.
Great, thank you. Open for discussion, Counselor Andrews.
Has there been any feedback from the residents mostly affected by the disruption of the forest back there on what they would like to see? Has there been any feedback?
I haven't received any feedback. I have spoken to a few of the residents that were affected directly with some property damage, and there was no feedback given to what they wanted to see.
Great. Counselor Souls?
I really like grass. And letting nature take its course around Fort Nelson means that the trees take over, because that does happen. That's exactly how, in fact, that cleared area that was cleared just now used to be cleared too. And this was second growth, third growth, maybe fourth growth on that site too. I really like grass because it gives the deer something to eat other than people's grass in their yards. It's what I just make the point that when anything is cleared here, you have the option of mowing it. As in this is a very simple form of maintenance, and not at this point deciding to spend money on it from a trails point of view or consulting point of view, but to maintain it in a grass form by seeding some grass on it is fairly easy to add to our maintenance world, and lets us punt the land use decision down the road for farther if you wanted to include it in a trail or other things, but at least maintain it since it's already shaped and drainage is already taken care of. That's kind of what I see as a valuable end use.
Great. Thanks, Councillor Souls. Mayor?
My point exactly was what Councillor Souls has said, that, you know, I'm happy to hear that, you know, it didn't take much to deal with the drainage issues. I know when I was there talking to some of the neighbors, not just the ones who were affected by damage, but some of the others that were just sort of out there when I was walking around, you know, it was the brush itself that sort of prevented. It wasn't much of a trail that the quads could use. They still used it, and I think it still bothered them, but it wasn't like they could be racing through there. So I think if we're going to put a trail there, that probably would require us to do quite a bit more effort around getting community input along that street and in that sort of subdivision there. I'm with Councillor Souls. I think if we could, you know, put a little topsoil if it's necessary and put some grass in there and maybe a fence at either end to, you know, fence it to the bush line to stop the quads from, or whatever, motorcycles from ripping through there. That might help. It's just I'm interested to know, you know, a little bit about how this got from just fixing it and doing landscaping to, you know, a trail and a walking trail and a quad trail back there. So yeah, I'm looking for something much easier to maintain and probably less of a concern to the neighbors.
Okay. Did you want to address how it came to be that there was a proposal put forward for a multi-use area design?
During the initial meeting, we met on site with Urban Systems and Public Works just to take a look at what would be needed to mitigate any drainage issues. There was also, Urban had notified us that there was the trail, the community trail was on either end that we could tie into.
Okay.
And as an option, if we wanted to go that route for aesthetics, or maybe potentially even to, I don't want to say satisfy, but people walking and people riding their dirt bikes and such, we could do a dual purpose trail, walking, probably some trees with a dirt bike trail on the other side to appease both people. Yeah.
Okay. Does that address your question, Mayor?
Sure, thanks.
Okay, great. Yeah, so I'm of the opinion too, to limit further actions to monitoring and maintaining drainage while letting nature reclaim the area. I'm thinking we have consensus around the table and enough direction for staff to move forward. Oh, Councillor Andrews?
Sorry, just one more point. I never even really considered mowing it and maintaining it as grass, and, you know, especially with the season we just had, it might be nice to have that buffer of trees and brush from households. I think that's very fire smart if we did grass and mowed. I think that I like the sounds of that instead of allowing the trees to completely come back.
Councillor, sorry, CAO Barry. You're next.
Public
Blaine.
Works isn't here to speak tonight, so the intent in behind those fence lines, part of the discussion when they did the drainage and basically touched up to get the drainage in is to mow the area in the back to a certain point. So let things regenerate naturally closer to the bush line. The intent was to potentially, again, it was more around getting an idea if council had any desires to look at any other options. But minimally it's to from fence lines of property lines back to a certain point is to mow and maintain the area, which helps create a bit of a buffer. And also, from a dangerous tree perspective, I know Public Works deals with a significant amount of dangerous trees close to property lines that is on, in that area in particular is our property, not Crown land. So it helps mitigate the danger tree issue too,
Great. Okay,
in
thanks.
addition to everything else.
Okay. Mayor, your hand was up and now it's down. Did you get your question answered?
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much. I just, did we do the earthwork ourselves, the drainage work? Is that why it was only $12,000?
No, that was a local contractor that was hired for that.
Oh, okay, but that just came out of our own budget,
Yes.
Public Works budget, operational. Okay. Yep. So we could seed it the same way.
I would say yes. I'd have to talk to Public Works Director to see what they have in their budget for that, but I'm sure it's possible.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, great. So you have
Hey,
enough direction to, oh, no, there you
No,
go.
I was just trying to get my hand down, sorry.
Okay, okay, so you're good? We can move on? All right.
Yes.
All right, thanks, everyone. Moving on to report 73. The Northern Rockies Recreation Center Fitness Center proposal history. Hello, Mr. Woodland. Nice to see you. Oh, and
Good evening, Mayor and Deputy Mayor and councillors. That was a mouthful for the
right,
evening.
getting a bit onerous.
On
isn't it?
November the 12th, a delegation came forward looking at the center of the walking track area for a possible gymnasium. After that, council requested a history of the decisions for that space. So we sat and pulled together everything that we had and the guidelines that we follow from council's wishes over that. So we put that in this report and hopefully that give you the information you were looking for.
Yeah. Very well done report, was very, very inclusive of both the history, but also really gave a good indication of what that space is used for. It's not wasted space. It's used extensively and has been a great addition from my perspective for the rec center and the residents. So I'll open it up for discussion, questions. Mayor?
Thank you. So I agree with that. I was one of the ones looking for the history of it, and the report was very good. Gave me a bit of an indication, and not only that, there's been some correspondence from some of the people who were, I guess, used as potential references and users for that space that came and said they weren't really interested in it anyway. So I'm of a mind that that we decline the request myself, but that's just me.
Hey,
Oop.
oh, you're on. Do we want to make that into a motion then, or? Sorry.
Well, I'm not sure. Thank you. I'm not sure where we are with respect to that contractor, if we're in any kind of negotiations at the staff level or not, or if we haven't done anything except do this report for us. And if that's the case, then, his request is clear and depending on where we are in any kind of negotiation with him, I'd be prepared to make that motion.
Okay, if you can just hang tight for a second, Councillor Souls wanted to say something and then we'll go back to Mr. Woodland.
I very much appreciate this report as well, and I am of like mind in that we have good use for that space, and maintaining our commitment to not competing directly against business in Port Nelson is still a very valuable perspective. I would suggest, though, if we do decline on the request, that we also reference the fact that there's a lot of space in Port Nelson, that the type of facility that was presented to us would be very welcome in Fort Nelson. And I think that there's lots of other space that it could be accommodated. So I'll leave it with that.
Great, thank you. Mr. Woodland?
We haven't engaged in any talks with the delegation that came forward.
Okay. Well, I feel it would be appropriate for council to respond back. We did have a delegation that appeared before us, so I would hate for it just to go off into the never land and don't hear back from us. So I think if appropriate, it would be good to have a letter drafted and just outlining that we are not interested in moving forward at this time to adapt that space for a gym, something like that. If that come up with the good wording there. Do we have consensus around that kind?
I also like
I'll make-
Counselor's suggestion to let them know there's other spaces
Yeah.
available.
Okay. Mayor, did you have something?
I just make a motion that we respond to the delegation with a letter that that explains what you guys have already talked about.
Great. All right. Do I have a seconder? Counselor Andrews, all in favor? Excellent. Motion carries. Thank you. Thanks very much again for that report. Okay. That takes us to 8.6, the Northern Rockies Regional Municipality Zoning Amendment, Small Scale Multi-Use Housing Bylaw number 23024 for adoption. So moved by, sorry.
So moved.
Counselor Souls, seconded by Counselor Andrews. All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. And 8.7 is the Northern Rockies Regional Municipality Rural Zoning Amendment Small Scale Multi-Unit Housing Bylaw number 2312024.
Also moved.
Counselor Souls, seconded by Counselor Dickey. All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, moving so fast. With my paper.
What's that supposed to mean?
Oh, I'm just talking while I'm keeping up my papers. I forget my mic's on. Okay, that is taking us to correspondence and information package. So number 9.1 for discussion, the email from Claude Normando, president of Fort Nelson Search and Rescue, a request for administrative support. So I'm feeling like everybody has read the email. I received it on November 25th. It was addressed to me and I forwarded on to the rest of council and to staff. And I responded to Mr. Normando that we would bring this up at today's meeting for discussion. So I'll open the floor for discussion. Councilor Roper, thank you.
In my opinion, I think it's a reasonable request given the circumstances. So I would absolutely be in favor of assigning some of those resources to assist.
Okay. Councilor Andrews.
I have two pieces of mind. I would love to assist. I also know the reality of what our staff's going through at the moment with our EOC that was ran all year. We've got budgets coming up. I'm not positive we have capacity to share as much. I'm sure our staff could make it work. And if we told them to, I'm sure they will, but I'm not exactly sure how fair that is. It's a non-for-profit society that needs help. And I would like to help, but we already do help them quite a bit. We support them financially for their operations. I guess the better question would be to staff or to Scott to see if they do have some spare time.
I'll be honest, administratively, we're tapped out now. So we can continually look for areas where we can, and this has nothing to do with the organization looking for, SARS looking for help. It just comes down to just the frank reality that we are not looking for things to do quite honestly. And we are looking for ways to create, to lessen the workload so we can actually get everything done. Well, we continue to see increased downloading from the province and additional administrative requirements. We do what we can to streamline and to automate and use technology, but quite frankly, we're not in a real position to, as Councilor Andrews said, if we had to do something, then we'd have to take something off our plate on our end, which either way, it's an additional expense to the organization. If council's looking at doing something for SARS, it could be because the numbers based on what's been provided is about 7 hours a week. So it's one person day per week essentially. It's there's a mechanism where SARS could request financially support to look after that themselves through the budget process is an option also, of
Right.
course. Because either way, it's going to cost us. It
Okay.
would cost.
Great. Mayor?
I was gonna exactly say that. This is an operational request and I don't think we have any business in it. And, if they want to come forward with a budget request, then they should. But really, this is an operational request and it's really not our place unless we're gonna write policy around it, which would give the same opportunity to everybody.
Anyone else? Okay, so I feel that we need to make a response back to Mr. Normando. So can somebody make a motion asking staff to write a letter recapping the consensus that we've reached around this email?
I'd like to make a motion that we respond to Claude and Search and Rescue. I guess sadly declining his request for support in the work of, staff administration time.
Do you want to outline that they are open to make a request to council as we go through the budget process like they have in the past?
Yeah.
So they know this process, like something like that?
Yeah, definitely outline the process to look for operational funds.
Okay. Anybody second? Okay, Councillor Roper, all in favor? Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Okay, next before you is a letter from Lori Clark from North Paw Animal Rescue Society and a request for resolution of support. So they're looking for a letter of support.
I'll move we send a letter of support.
Okay. Seconded by Councillor Souls. All in favor? Motion carries. Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, so then for information, and I need a motion to accept the quarterly grant and aid distribution report, council information package of November 25, council information package of December 4th. Councillor Andrews, seconded by Councillor Dickey. All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, that brings us to 10 new business and the additions. So the addition that I had was around, 10.1. Yep, staff recognition. Thanks. So I am so honored to be here tonight to recognize service milestones for employees of the NRM. We are incredibly lucky to have such talented and dedicated staff. Many of the NRM staff are homegrown, some of who began their careers with the NRM cutting grass and are now leaders within the organization. Our future lies with them, and I'd say we are in good hands. So in the rec department, we have Olive McLean at 25 years, Jonathan Roberts at 20 years, Anastasia Aspen at 20 years. Did you guys start on the same day? Because it's like 20.68. Did you? Good to know. Vince Legg at 15 years, Carol Anderson at 15 years, Rosanna Shepherd at 15 years, Murray Tollefson at 10 years, Monica Pilot at 10 years, Pearlie LaRock at 10 years, Andrew Mason at 5 years, Dwayne Walsh at 5 years, Corey Koenig, hope I said that right, 5 years, Judy Clark, 5 years, Terry Rockcliffe, Bryn Belfour, and Kaylee Kennedy, all at 5 years. In fire, we have Allison Starr, the star, 30 years, like holy crow. Hayward Shepherd, 20 years. Brian Mallette at 15 years, and Sean Goulding, at 5 years. Public Works and the Airport, we have Gerald Gorsalitz at 20 years, Gary Charters at 10 years, Joss Goodwin at 10 years, Steve Rogers at 10 years, and Michael Bond at 5 years. Corporate Services, we have Rob Blaine at 15 years, Alicia Gregory, yay, at 10 years, Heather Gushu at 10 years. Executive, we have Aaron LaVale at 15 years, Harvey Woodland at 15 years, and Jaylene McIver at 15 years. Under Finance, we have Carla Noble at 10 years and Bryn Belfour at 10 years. So just really want to recognize all of those employees and thank them for their hard work and dedication throughout so many years. And lastly, we recognize a 15+ years of service for Scott Berry. I might cry, but you know, I do that often. So when reflecting on what I wanted to say tonight, I was drawn to this quote by John Maxwell. The pessimist complains about the wind, the optimist expects it to change, but the leader adjusts the sails. Well, no one can deny Scott's ability to adjust the sails over the past 15 years. We only have to take a quick look back to remember the wildfire that saw our entire community safely evacuated with only hours of notice. Days later, having to evacuate the town center and everything, can't look at you, I'm gonna cry, that allows local government to fulfill their obligations, and not to mention evacuating the entire emergency operations center, then bringing us all safely home. And who could forget COVID? A once in a lifetime event, I hope, that saw life as we know it changed. Again, it was Scott that adjusted the sails, managing the provincial and federal government directives, regional councillors' opinions and expectations, of which there were many, all while keeping residents and staff safely at the forefront of every decision. Now, Scott didn't manage these events alone. He led a team that was created, nurtured, and uplifted by Scott. The evidence is in the pudding, as they say. Scott leads a creative and empowered team that consistently rolls up their sleeves and gets the job done no matter what. I would be remiss if I didn't mention that Scott is a son, a brother, a husband, a dad, and now a grandfather, and dedicated to them all. Throughout the last 15 years, Scott has experienced great sorrow and overwhelming joy. He has managed to juggle his dedication to his family and the NRM, of which does not go unnoticed. I am honored to present Scott with his 15-year recognition award. Hey, get them inside. Mayor.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry I'm not there to hug you, Scott, but I certainly echo all of those comments about you, and thank you, Deputy Mayor Gerwing, for doing that. You did a fantastic job. I don't say this enough, and I do want to say it, because when I was running for mayor, there were a lot of people who came to me and said, we need a change. We need, there's too much going on in the municipal ranks. There's too much favoritism. There was all kinds of complaints. And I said to those people, if I get elected, I will make a determination on my own based on my experience as an elected official and a mayor in other communities. And, I'll look at it through the lens of my experience. And I'm more than happy to say, every time I see those people now and they complain to me, I say they should be thankful for the staff that we have, because this is an amazing staff. It's an amazing team. As you said, Deputy Mayor, they stepped up when the time was needed, and without a second thought across the entire organization. So all of those people who who got, who have hit a milestone, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 years. Imagine that, 30 years.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah. So, congratulations and thank you very much. I think it's just an amazing team that we have.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah.
Okay, I lost the last page of my agenda, but I think I can fake it. So we'll go. So that takes us to 11 standing items for discussion. So 11.1 councillor reports. Anybody? Okay, well, I have one. Can you be tired of hearing from me? November 27th, I attended the OCP steering committee meeting. We will meet again on December 12th and continue to go through the draft plan. Rada is doing an amazing job leading us through all of that. November 28th, I attended the chamber board meeting. They've been busy planning and executing the small business Christmas party, which took place on the 7th. Unfortunately, I was out of town, so I hope it was a wonderful time. Also on the 28th, I attended a meeting with Heather Sparshoom from School District 81, Nathan and Lee Cook from BC Emergency Health Services, and Diana Penny. Discussions and planning continue to take shape on the possibility of a high school EMR program offered in Fort Nelson. November 29th, I hosted a group from RL Angus School. Thank you to Shannon Clark for giving us the opportunity to share all about local government. Ms. Clark wanted me to speak about how local government impacts the students' lives, and they wanted a tour of the building. We did a scavenger hunt designed around what local government provides and how much it all costs. Then we did a guess the answer around how many people use the pool, rec center, attended Spookorama, etc. It was so funny because as the kids were leaving, I heard one turn to his friend and said, "Well, that was fun." Like he didn't expect it was going to be. So that was really great. And I just want to express my gratitude to Alicia Gregory for all of her assistance. I couldn't have done it without you. So thank you. December 1, the coldest day of the year, I attended the Parade of Lights. Thank you, Dave Dominic with Northeast Management, for organizing this beautiful event once again this year. And to the local businesses, service providers, the NRM, fire and rescue staff who year after year, no matter the economic situation, decorates the floats. We love you all. Also, December 1st, I attended the museum light up. Wow, what an amazing community effort, spearheaded by the Historical Society, Kim and Jamie, and the board. What a great addition to the holiday season. Job well done. I missed the Santa visit, but I understand the mayor was there and singing along, so I'm sure he'll speak to that. Along with some of you on December 3rd, I attended the council-to-council meeting with Fort Nelson First Nations, followed by a meeting with the directors of the CF Corp. December 4th, I attended the community roundtable meeting and the Grace Manor board meeting. Grace Manor has been so busy with multiple projects, fresh paint, flooring, new doors, just to name a few. All the suites are occupied and there is a waiting list. They still do not have a backup generator, so they're trying to get BC Housing involved in a situation or in a solution. And I think that they're talking with Sean and Scott. And so we are still working on that. Hopefully we see some sort of resolution soon. December 5, I attended the monthly BC Rural Health Network implementation meeting, also a Northern Health update meeting. And then in the evening, attended the community health dialogue. So yeah, that was me. Anything else? Mayor, did you have anything? Mayor, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. December the 1st, Santa Claus is coming to town. So that was the song. After the parade was, again, the parade was great. I think there was 14 or 15 floats. Had a look at them and they braved the cold and it was wonderful. The light up was good. Santa showed up just right on time. The lights all came on when he waved his magic wand and that all worked really well. So thanks to all the volunteers and our staff over at REC for helping with that. I also attended, along with all of you, the Fort Nelson First Nation meetings and the community forest meetings. That was on the 2nd. On the 3rd, I had a very good conversation with Cam Allen with respect to the Fire Resiliency Committee. We sat for about an hour and really talked through some of his ideas, and of course he's been sitting with Sonia Leverkus, and they've got some some good ideas, some expectations. You know, there might be a need to maybe rein in some of the expectations, but I'm really happy that, you know, we saw 9 people apply, and I'm excited to have a conversation and really get this committee off the ground and going. So yeah, that's then the fourth I made my way back here. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. 11.2 business outstanding. Do we have any? Nope. Okay. Notice of motion. Anything? Nope. 13, public news media question and answer. So any questions, comments around the budget? Priorities set by council business. So I see Lori would like to address council. Oh, sorry, we because the mayor is attending remotely, if you could come up to a mic so he can hear you. I'm sorry, Lori.
Thanks. Sorry, just to add to the letter from mayor and council, there's an application that has to be filled in too. It's quite short. I'm more than willing to help whoever's doing it.
Okay.
And also the deadline is December 31st.
Okay. All right. Do we need a motion to provide direction to staff to do that, or you can just, no, we're just good? Okay, somebody will get that done for you.
Thank you.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much, Lori. Okay, so 14 resolution to, oh. Holy crow, I'd need a magnifying glass to read that. Sorry, Bev. Your print is very small. Oh, there we go.
There we go. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and Council. Thank you very much, Councillor Gerwing, for mentioning the small business Christmas party, the Love Local Christmas party we did on December 7th, this past Saturday. Just wanted to thank Council for your support of that. And yes, it did go well. And yes, I'm still recovering. Seriously, still recovering.
And sounds like it.
Right. I just wanted to take this opportunity as well because this is the last meeting of the year, as I understand, for Mayor and Council on behalf of the Chamber Board of Directors and of course the staff, wish you a Merry Christmas and thank you for all of your support during the course of the year. And that same sentiment to all the staff who worked so hard all year.
Great. Thanks, Bev. And back at you and your family. Okay, 14, resolution to move to a closed meeting, that the meeting be closed pursuant to section 91A CJ of the community charter. Okay, Councillor Dickey and Councillor Andrews. All in favor? Sorry. Motion carries. Okay. Okay, we will temporarily adjourn this meeting. So welcome back to the Regional Council meeting of December 9th. We have a rise and report.
Moved by Councillor Andrews, seconded by Councillor Roper, that all applications received for the Fire Smart and Wildfire Resiliency Committee be approved, and upon confirmation of availability, the following community applicants be appointed to the committee: Cameron Allen, Heather Gardner, Tom Fulton, Jim Fulton, Angela White, Sonia Levericus, Byron Gagne, Rick Seidel, and Leonard Peterson. And that Mayor Rob Fraser be the council member appointed to the committee. Carried unanimously.
Great. Thank you. And that adjourns tonight's Regional Council meeting. Thanks very much.
Thank you, everybody.
Night, Mayor.
Yeah, if I don't see you before Christmas, Merry Christmas to everybody. Happy New Year.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.